think we are recording now. Great. So just a little bit of history on this program. Last year was the pilot year, and this is a collaborative effort between the USFS Rocky Mountain region, the Colorado Natural Heritage Program, and the Colorado Native Plant Society. We've got all representatives here today, which is pretty exciting. And really the idea is that this is a 5-year agreement between the USFS and those agencies that I just mentioned to help scout populations, collect native plant material, identify collection methods, and then also coordinate and utilize interns, technicians from the Colorado Natural Heritage Program, volunteers from the Colorado Native Plant Society, and USFS local staff when available, to help the USFS with post-fire restoration monitoring, and then also bipartisan infrastructure law objectives. I've pulled a quick quote here from the Washington office that just reads that national forest lands are increasingly threatened by climate change, fragmentation, non-native invasive species, and severe wildfires. There are several regional and nationwide assessments that have documented the supply and diversity of native plant seed sources, particularly genetically diverse seed sources, originating from known geographic sources, is insufficient to meet future restoration needs, which is really why we're doing the work we do here in this region. So again, here are those two main goals that I just talked about. First is helping to meet that bipartisan infrastructure law to ensure that there are integrated benefits for long-term soil stability, maintaining or improving wildlife habitat, and providing for resilient ecosystems. And then the second objective that we try to meet is the Burned Area Rehabilitation, or the BAR program's Category 2 objectives, which is ensuring appropriate native plant materials are available for use in post-fire restoration efforts. All of this is to say that we're trying to get the right seed in the right place at the right time. That's the most important phrase of today. Here we go. Oops, did I go one too far? I did. Yeah. So a little bit about our species selection. This is an annual process that we conduct here at CNHP. Myself, Jessica Smith, Donna Sharrock, and Maggie Gaddis were all the team members this year to help do that. So we want to help best fit the needs of our Forest Service partners, which is why you received an interest survey this winter season. I hope that you guys were able to respond to that. I'm showing a few of the results on this slide right now. So the first one is, what habitats do you have or perceive you'll have the most seed needs? You can see here that montane forests, subalpine forests, and montane grasslands are the top, but that there are seed needs across the entire region. So all of our habitats were selected for this question, in addition to some things like ski area restoration, roadside management, and things like that. We also have a second result on the bottom here, which is selecting the primary management goals that you'd like to use this seed for. You can see that pollinator habitat and post-fire restoration are the two largest ones, but again, we have a really wide range of management goals that you all are trying to meet with this seed this year. So also part of that was helping us revise the target species. Let's see if I scroll forward one. You can see some of the species that you might have selected as ones that you'd like to prioritize this year. You can see that for discouraged species, most people said that they did like the species that are on our list, but there are some ones that either prove to be difficult to ID, might become weedy by nature, or have trouble with collection or the grow out operations that you guys might have mentioned to us. Thank you for doing that. And then you can also see that we have quite a lot of species encouraged for collection, with Liatris punctata, penstemon species, the general genus, Heterotheca villosa, Nacella virigula, and Ratibida columnifera, all at the top there. Go for one. We also have a few restrictions on the species that we do not want to collect. So That's any native species that are listed as threatened or endangered under the Endangered Species Act, any candidate species that are proposed for listing under that same act, any species that are listed as globally or state vulnerable or critically imperiled, that's G1s and G1s, G2s, S1s, and S2s by a state heritage program. Any species that are excluded in the Appendix 1 of the Convention in the Trade of Endangered Species or CITES, any species that are not native to the US, and then all cultivars are known populations from a known vegetation treatment site. In addition to this, we also need special permission and permitting to collect in wilderness areas, so it's good to note that before we go into the season for the folks here in the room. Yeah. And then also we have to make sure that the population has at least 50 individuals that are at natural dispersal stage when doing a collection. So here are some of our target species for this year. These first 32 are the ones that are prioritized for collection. The ones that have a star next to their name are ones that we collected last year. And the ones that are bolded are ones that we recognize as good for post-fire restoration. Some of my favorites on the list include Bouteloua curtipendula or side-oats grandma, Liatris punctata, like all of you. I think that that is just a really beautiful and great species. I also am quite a fan of Calaria macrantha or prairie June grass. And I'll stay on this just for a second so you guys can capture the information. I know it's a lot of words.
I think this is the part we all love. What species are we looking
Yes.
at?
And then we also have some species for opportunistic collection. So there are 20 of these. Again, those stars are ones that were previously collected, and bolded ones are ones good for post-fire restoration. And yeah, again, this was a process conducted by Donna, Jessica, Maggie, and myself this previous year, using a whole different variety of tools to sort of do a review of what species we wanted to prioritize for the region. Yeah. And then we also are starting a watch list this year. So these are species that we might want to scout or consider collecting for future years. This includes species that are requested by Forest Service partners like you all on the virtual world. And then we also have a few shrubs you might notice. Shrubs are notoriously hard for germination and grow out operations, but we also recognize that there's a huge need for them. So we'd really like to get into shrub collection and sub-shrub collection if possible. Okay, and this is the field season workflow. So the general way that we're going to be going this year, right now we're in the onboarding and training section of this, and you all are attending the native plant material collection and protocol technique part of this. So that's the part of that second bullet point there. Once we're done with all of our trainings, developing our tools, and doing our check-in meetings, then we move into field data and seed collection. So for this, we want to scout plant populations, collect data, photos, and herbarium vouchers, collect seeds and native plant material, and then also store them in appropriate conditions. We use this year the Colorado State Forest Service climate-controlled storage areas for our seeds. We also collect data and plant identification or quality control, and then we create hitch summaries, which we send out to the local forests that we've been working in for that week. Finally, then we'll go into the final data review. So a little bit more data QC. We create an annual report every year. Every Forest Service partner and CONIPS member is available, or this resource is available to every CONIPS member and Forest Service partner, as well as any of our technicians who would like to see them. They'll also be helping to generate them. Also reviewing all of our herbarium vouchers that we've collected, reviewing photos and any other documentation. And then finally, we move into the end of the season. So just making sure that all of the documentation is within our OneDrive. That's where we store all of our documents. It's a virtual storage system for us. We'll mount those herbarium specimens that I talked to, and then we ship our seeds to a seed extractory. We use the Coeur d'Alene nursery for seed extraction and grow out operations here. And before we get into going out into the field, it's good to make sure that we're talking about safety, because the most important thing is the people out in the field. Our technicians working is more important than any of seed collection or scouting operations we can do. So yeah, for this, we make sure we have physical and digital maps. You can see a few varieties that we have here. In the bottom right-hand corner, this is a motor use vehicle map. Every forest unit has one of these maps for us to use. We use this in Avenza. We also have gazetteers of every state that we'll be working in, and an ArcGIS field map that's specific to scouting and collection for our project. We also make sure to carry first aid kits with both crews. These are fully stocked for wilderness first aid needs. And it's also important to know about team allergies and medications. This is true for our crews, but also any of the interns that might be working on this project. We also create field gear checklists. So we have one for the vehicle gear needs, actual field seed collection needs, and then also first aid supplies, just to make sure that when we're out in the field, we have everything that we need. We also create safety forms, and we have contacts for every single hitch. We try and make sure we have at least one Forest Service contact for every district we're working within. And then we also have 3 contacts here at the Colorado Natural Heritage Program for you guys to access when you're out in the field. And we do daily check-ins via spot satellite phones. We just went over the protocol for that yesterday for the technicians in the room. But what's most important is just using your best judgment. So if it seems like it's an unsafe area, if there's lightning striking, just make sure that you're protecting yourself first before thinking, wait, I can collect one more from one more plant. It'll be okay. Yeah. It's also important to know the location of life-saving meds in particular. So things like EpiPens and inhalers, if anyone's using those. So now going into assessing populations for collection, this is part of scouting for us. Our seasonal technicians help us scout. So do our Forest Service partners and our Colorado Native Plant Society members. We also have the South Dakota University students working on this project for us. So they're doing some scouting in areas like the Black Hills and the Oglala National Grassland this year for us, which is awesome. So we do a lot of coordination and communication between a bunch of different people for this project. That's really the primary goal, is to bring together as many parties as we can to collect the best genetically and geographically appropriate seed we can. We do phenology checks, so that's seeing what stage a seed is in its natural dispersal stage. So it can be something like developing seed, ready for seed, post-seed dispersal. All of this is within our Survey 123 forms that we do that with. We also do observation points. So when scouting, we leave points on our field maps project so that we can go back and assess those points later. We have 2023 points for use by our technicians and any interns or any Forest Service partners that might want to use them as well to recheck those populations for us. And that is also wrapped into last year's scouting efforts. All selected sites must have a few minimum requirements. So this includes having 50 individuals ready for collection, at least 50,000 pure live seed per pooled collection. So pooled collections mean collections from multiple sites within the same ecoregion and within the same or once removed provisional seed zone. Provisional seed zones are ways that we can put seed back in the ground in the most effective way, so where it's most likely to have success when put back into the ground. And then also we try and collect no more than 20% of the natural seed population. So that means either taking 1/5 from every 5th plant or about 1/5 from each individual plant. There are a few other rules for recollection specifically from previous areas. So this comes into effect this year since we did do some collection last year. We try not to collect from the same place for more than 2 years in a row. This is to make sure that the population is still stable. We also do a few checks. So reassessment of that site suitability. Are there any new factors of disturbance? Like, has there been a smut outbreak within the collection? Is it really ravaged by insects? Has there been a fire that came through? All of those things are things that we want to reassess upon visiting a previous collection area. We also want to make sure that this recollection is linked to the original collection number. So if you notice that there was a collection made, you want to make sure to include that original seed reference number, which is how we track unique individual collections, in your new collection form. And you want to identify this in the annual report if it is a recollection that you're doing. And again, we're just trying to note this in as many places as possible. So that includes on collection bags, in photos, and during seed shipments. I think that's it for this slide. Oh, I guess, yeah, before I move on, I'll point out these maps that we have in the left-hand side of the slide. So this is just what part of our field map looks like. You can see all those pretty pastel colors. That's the seed provisional zone that you're seeing visualized. And then you can also see some points here. So the ones in the top are iNaturalist and SciNet observation points. And then the red pin looking ones are 2023 scouting areas. Yeah, and this was on the Rio Grande National Forest last year. So now I wanted to move us into a quick example of how to assess populations for a collection. And the main way we do this is through a seed readiness or seed cut test. So I think for those in the virtual world, this might be a little bit difficult, but if you have a cutting board, some tape, a box cutter knife, and maybe some seed, you can join in with us. I also have some physical resources for us here in the room. So I might stop sharing at this point just so that you online can see what we're doing in the room. But before doing that, I wanted to show you what you might be looking for in the seed as well. So this is how you can cut a seed. You want to cut it longitudinally along the axis so that you're able to see all of the interior structures of the seed. You're trying to make sure that this embryo is fully filled to the sides. That's what shows that the seed is, has good germination. So this right here is what a dry, good, healthy seed might look like. So again, you can see that that embryo is fully filled and that the megagametophyte is also all the way to the edges of the seed coating there. An example of what you might not be looking for is an immature seed. So you can kind of see that it looks wet in appearance. It's still pretty white in color. Seeds tend to turn a little bit more yellowish or darker in color when they're ready for collection. Yeah, and you can also see that the embryo is not fully enhanced in this seed yet. Here's what it might look like if a seed has been destroyed. This one in particular, I think, says that it was destroyed. Yeah, I think just shrunken. You can see that again, it's just not fully filled to the side. So this is an example of a seed that might not be fully viable. This is what it looks like if a bug might have gotten into your seed. You can see that there just really isn't the interior structure, and there's actually larvae that are in there as well. So yeah, if you see any evidence of bug destroying, including like what looks like maybe little chomps or this sort of wet liquidy material, probably not a viable seed. And then again, here's the other pathogen that might affect our seed collections, and that's fungus. Fungus just makes it look kind of like a date, in my opinion. Yeah, so if it's just kind of moldy and there's not really a visible structure on the inside, it probably also isn't a viable seed. Yeah, so going back to seed cutting, let's do a quick example. Stop sharing. Okay, yeah. And also please throw any questions in the chat as we go along. Jessica's looking at those and she can answer them. You can also interrupt me at any point and just unmute yourself if you have questions as well. Okay, so yeah, you guys with the cutting boards, the first thing you're going to want to do is take some of that tape and just lay it out on the cutting board. This is double-sided tape.
Yeah, are there any questions online or anything you guys want to discuss while we're doing the seed cutting? Yeah, that's good. I'll go ahead and work on emailing that right now.
Yeah, that'd be
We're doing
great.
the cutting.
What did you say about the tape?
Yeah, so for this tape, the thing you kind of want to do is just lay it out on the cutting board like this.
Okay.
And then cut it with your knife. Be very careful. And then you can peel back the other side and stick a seed to it.
You got it.
No.
You can start us off.
Peel back the other side.
It's like you're making a tape donut, so
Okay,
that you can
okay.
stick the seed on it,
Okay,
because it's hard to cut these tiny.
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, it's actually double-sided tape,
Oh.
so you can just
Oh.
peel back the white part.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Another donut. I see.
It should be, right?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and then
Oh,
we've got a
that's
few
back.
seeds here in the room. I've given them some
Nice.
potentially immature grass seeds, some legumes, locust
Yeah.
tree seeds, and then also dandelions. So, yeah, and I'll make sure to show this to the camera once they're all done too.
Hey, Ally.
Yeah.
Do you want to help me? Let's see, I could download whatever we want to send out and put it in Teams, or I
Okay.
could also email it. I think probably our and then the protocol.
Yeah.
I think so. Okay, so for target species list. Okay.
This, okay, it is open. Hold on. Whoa.
Oh, that's all.
I don't know.
Well, this one would be
if they're
easier,
good.
but,
This one looks okay, but we can open it.
Yeah, 'cause I saw it.
oh, careful with your finger.
Yeah, this is maybe not.
Yeah, there's also
Did I cut it on
just
the tape?
some plain razor blades if that's
Or the-
easier. I cut it on the tape
Okay.
just so that it stays more still.
Oh, I see. I feel like it should be like this.
Yes. Yeah.
They cut it like
Still
that
working
or
on
on
getting
the
the paper
side?
adapted form for that,
Well,
but everything
like
else in there is
Like
still
how
good
it
to
is.
go.
Or no, before. Okay.
It's fine. There's just one highlighted section where the paper adapted form is. I can send them that.
Shorter or that?
This-
Here.
That way they can at least.
Yeah.
Oh god, this is scaring me. Cause these ones aren't sticking to the stick.
There, no. Okay, that does look easier.
Yeah. Also starting with the hardest.
Yeah, the hard.
Yeah.
Just looks like there'd be fun things inside. The hard coat.
Yeah. That's really not working, is it?
You can use a grass seed.
Yeah, that's a
Use
lot
grass
less.
seed. It's less likely that we're gonna have these really big hard seeds.
Yeah.
I thought they'd be good since they're so big, but they'd be hard to cut through.
Easy to see it's inside.
Oh yeah, and then the other magical tool that we use here this year that might be helpful for you guys online that is might be trying to do seed assessment tests are these. They are handheld pocket microscopes. So they have 60 to 120 times magnification if the owl will focus on it. There we go.
That's
Yeah, I got these off Amazon for like $17. So a really good find. Yeah, and I can send out the link for that too if you guys are curious for them. This is what they look like. And they've just got really good magnification, just this little scope right there, and then some light also for it. So Marty's joining us.
Good.
Yeah. Hi, Marty. I'm glad you could join us this morning. We're just working on seed cut tests right now.
Okay.
yeah. I think that's one.
This one
Okay.
is kind of.
Okay.
And that's just gonna be hard because this might
Yeah, you
be
can
soft.
look at it.
Yeah.
There's a light and then this one.
Like
is
not
the-
fully developed seed.
Make the
Like
list
cutting it might be
and
just mushy. Yeah, maybe that one looks ready.
So once you cut that, you can hold this
Mhm.
right
Right,
over
or
it
set it like directly
and
Yeah,
get
on
a
it.
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good
Oh,
look at
okay.
the embryo. And I think I have a hand. Oh,
Is there another?
Yeah.
sorry, it makes me all.
Oh, is that like?
The fine.
So I really,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
really drilling down on Jan Wingate's book,
Mhm.
and I took this picture.
Might not be yours. So I put it like on top of it. Oh gosh.
Ours is another piece.
Oh,
Oh,
there.
there, you use it.
So I held my hand lens up.
Oh,
to
it's,
the picture.
yeah, that one.
Am I looking? No.
I do this with alpine plants a
see.
lot, but now.
No, that light's just shining in my eye now.
Like,
Yeah,
that.
you use the
was
light side down.
grass. And, like,
Okay.
And you
It
can
was,
set it down on the cutting
like,
board, so that it's
you-
still.
So we weren't able to really like see all the parts. But then we totally built consensus. You see it?
See it?
Yeah.
No.
Into
Yeah.
it could be, it could be better, but
Oh,
it's something.
yeah.
It's really close.
Were you able to cut it? Nice.
Yeah, the grass seed for sure. That's a big theme.
Yeah, and how is that grass seed looking?
It looks like it's
It's pretty green.
It's pretty green.
green,
Yeah.
It's green, so
Kind of
probably-
wet, maybe?
Yeah.
maybe a little wet, yeah. Not exactly ready, but but it's there. There's some things there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And
Yeah,
so
you could try
it's
to
so
light too.
helpful.
Oh,
because,
yeah, then-
You know, some of my
Might be
early
easier.
like grass ID things, they're so like, I have no vocabulary. I'm just like, I have need to know in my research thing. And so I've got all these
Oh, yeah.
pictures like this, but
Better.
I've never taken pictures of that. So you can see there, like,
The tiny.
some of them are like that.
That's probably not even the smallest seed we collected this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Acrophil doesn't actually reference the ligule and sheath very often. So this is really good for vegetative use. And I brought that one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's great. That's super handy. Okay, yeah. So for those online again, the tools that we're using is a box cutter knife or a plain old razor blade, cutting board, some double-sided tape,
It's like a
a
hammer.
little hand
Yeah.
lens or field microscope as we
Yeah.
call it, and then the seed itself, yeah, and just making sure that you've cut longitudinally along it. And now we've got Melee joining us. This is great.
I'm gonna try to look at this.
Yeah.
Hi Melee, welcome to the training. We're just doing some seed cut tests right now. I think we're gonna finish up here in a second. Oh, and Becca, forgot you wanna hold it right up against it. So yeah, just place it all the way down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Use the
it's not
zoom
in
on the side.
It's not in the thing yet.
Okay, yeah, and for those who just joined us, I'll go ahead and share again our agenda and where we're at right now. Let me just go back to that first slide.
Oh, yeah.
You're getting it? Oh, I meant to get my hand lens too.
Okay, and for all of you on the meeting, I'm about to
Yeah,
send
yeah,
out
I think I
our
got it.
target species
Send it
list
to
and
you.
protocol. So if you do not get this for some reason, you can email me directly
It's nice.
or put it in the chat and I'll follow up. So give me just another
I
minute.
don't think so.
I think
Doesn't
it,
look bad.
yeah, we gotta see. I don't know.
It's
Is
like
this
kind of.
Kentucky coffee tree over there? Like, tried to idea on it, not true.
Oh, that's really good.
Just a.
You mean
That's
you can
pretty
see?
I think you can still see the flowering parts actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is pretty.
Hmm.
That's great though. It just stays with the
How
tape
long
too.
Yeah, yeah, it's.
Microscope.
This part, did you
This
try
part,
any
I
with
don't-
the
Probably
dandelion
not that many more
seed?
minutes, but
This
that's
is dandelion.
Oh, this is?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You just can't open this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
I thought
seal
that'd be
box.
easier than it was.
Yeah.
Did you guys get it?
Okay,
It's
well,
kind of
I'll go ahead and advance then as Jessica works
I
on
found this
sending out
easier
those
to-
resources.
Then the.
For those who just joined us, we'll show you our target species again.
It's just.
All these slides will also be available to you guys post the meeting, and there's a recording happening right now as well. Here's our 32 primary species again. There is bolded species for post-fire restoration specific, and ones with stars are ones that we collected last year. And we also have the opportunistic list. Yeah, you might notice that Artemisia tridentata and Persea tridentata are on this opportunistic list. So they are ones that we're very curious about assessing the populations and phenology for. We'll be doing at least one trial collection of Artemisia tridentata this year. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. Now back on to scouting population. So there are a few things to consider when you first come to a site. The first thing you might want to look at is making sure that that population is of wild origin and is not planted or cultivated. For this, you want to make sure that you're at least 200 feet away from major roads. A lot of reseeding happens on roadsides. Ski areas are also highly revegetated with that, trail sides. So just making sure that you have a buffer between yourself and any anthropogenically disturbed areas is a good rule of thumb, if not for just being planted, for also maintaining less high concentrations of weedy species in our collections. We try and strive for having 0% invasive species and noxious weeds within our collected seeds. Yeah. Again, we also want to make sure that there's at least 50 individuals at natural dispersal stage within each population we collect from. This is a rule of thumb that comes from an old study that shows that to capture at least 90% of available alleles in a population, you need to collect from at least 50 individuals within that population. Again, that those seeds are healthy and hard, what we just did the seed assessment test for. So again, we're checking to see if there's any insect damage, smut, fungus, or pathogen infection, and just making sure that they're not generally empty for any other reason. That the seeds are taken from populations within that same ecological region I've been talking about. So seeds from the Southern Rockies are all collected within that same ecoregion, and then also the same or once removed provisional seed zones. And those might be combined into those same accession that I was talking about. So pooled collections throughout the collection season from the advice of our Forest Service regional ecologist, Donna Sharrock and Jessica Smith here. If there are multiple target species available at the same site, this is really good to know on our Survey 123 scouting forums. We try and do multi-collections whenever possible, since a lot of times populations are sort of dispersed at different rates. So for example, Claria macrantha kind of occurs in very small patches across a large area, where something like Festuca idahoensis might be really dense throughout that area. So trying to collect multiple seeds at the same time is great. We usually do just 2 for each person at a time, just to make sure we're not mixing up seeds. So, yeah. We also like to take into consideration the percent grade of a site slope. This is especially important when we're collecting with volunteers. A lot of the volunteers we work with choose seed collection over other things because it's a little bit more accessible. For this, we also like to be close to major roads when we're doing volunteer collections, and also take note of any bathrooms that might be available to them. I think that's what I mentioned next. Yeah. And then again, if there's any species that are on that opportunistic list or that Forest Service partners such as you all in the virtual audience have identified as species that you believe to be valuable towards collection and your own restoration work on your forest unit. And finally, we also like to look at grazing schedules when available to us. It's good to know these so that we can collect seed when it is at its natural dispersal state and it hasn't been grazed by a large cow or livestock population. So I wanted to go over a quick scenario here. Which of these two sites do you guys think might seem better just looking at our field map here? And in the chat, you guys are welcome to vote as well. Thoughts? It's not a trick question.
I'm not sure the scale,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but if that point's really far away, it might not be as good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
The
hearing
left.
some, yep, I'm hearing another vote online for the left.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
left side, the
Yeah.
one where there's clearly a visible
There's
road.
roads. Yeah.
Yep,
Yep.
lots of left vote online.
More accessible.
Yeah, it's more accessible. You can also look at the topographic map. That's in the background here too. So you might see that this one looks like it has a much steeper slope. So then we kind of look at these points that are in there to do some assessment. So you can see for this one on the left, we've got at least 3 different species that are all within that same loop. So we're looking at Bouteloua gracilis, that's the code for Boger 2, Zelia purpurea, and then also Retivita columnifera there. But on the right side, we actually also have 3 different individual species here. So for signet points, we have them all lumped into one area if available to us. So for this person, the voucher specimens were collected for Spiralis pictandris, Bouteloua gracilis, and Pascopyrum smithii, all within the same area. So this might actually still be a good area for multi-collection. Then we might also look at some satellite imagery to see what we're looking at a little bit more in detail here. So this is Point of Rocks in Cimarron National Grassland in Kansas. They're both in Cimarron National Grassland. And you can see that it is a little bit more disturbed, and it actually does have a bit of a steep grade when looking at actually the satellite imagery. This point on the map tends to look a little bit more flat, which feels strange seeing those topographic maps. So Curtis, your point to the scale is really important here. Yeah, if we go back to looking at those topographic maps, you might want to look at the numbers for our grades here. So there's one that says 3,500. That's really close to 3,475. So the distance between these grades is actually only about 25 feet. So it ends up being pretty flat. The grasslands just is a very flat place. So topographic maps can be deceiving in flat places. Just a good note to have. Yeah, based on those things, now which one would you choose? Yeah, so we might end up going for the right one. But again, it is good to consider proximity to roads. So we would have to travel a bit of a distance and over a fence to get to the right one. So if we're doing a collection with volunteers, it might still be good to choose the left-hand side. Now getting into identification, we have a few good keys we use here. Colorado Grasses by Janet Wingate. We also have this keys to some Colorado vegetative grasses in vegetative condition, which is also by Janet Wingate, courtesy of Maggie. Thank you so much for that. We also use, of course, The Flora of Colorado by Jennifer Ackerfield, Grasses of Colorado by Robert Shaw, and my personal favorite, A Field Guide to Wyoming Grasses, which has really good up-close pictures of different grass parts that are under a dissecting microscope, so you can really get a good scale of some different species. We might also use a dissecting microscope back here in the office. We collect both herbarium voucher specimens and specimens that are good for dissection. Those we collect in Ziploc bags, and yeah, we have them available for mounting later if need be. And then we also each year help to curate our own target species identification and phenology guide. So I've had some of the technicians work on this so far this year. Thank you, Anna, so much for that. And then we also worked on it last year. So this is a constantly updating guide. So I like to call it a working guide for that reason. We have most of the post-fire restoration species for this year in there, and then all of the target species for last year in there. And in addition to the paper guide, yeah, you can send that out too if you'd like.
I was just gonna ask. Okay.
Yeah, and in addition to the paper guide, we also have a photo guide, which shows some of the target species in different stages of phenology. So it might be in vegetative state, seed dispersal, and then we also like to show at least one up-close picture of what we use to identify that species particularly. We have a reference herbarium here at the Colorado Natural Heritage, yeah, that's right, Natural Heritage Program office. I'll show you guys that once we're done with this meeting. And then we also use the CSU herbarium for reference. That one has some really great dissecting microscopes again. And as I said, we collect disposable samples. And I'll also provide a few more resources at the end for identification. Into our sampling strategy, again, we like to sample from at least 50 individuals in a population. That's really the most important thing, which is why I'm hounding it down on a lot of different slides. It's also important to sample from multiple populations, again, within that same ecoregion or once removed provisional seed zone, PSZ, that's what that stands for. We like to collect from plants of various heights, colors, sizes, and seed abundance. This is, again, to capture as much genetic diversity as possible. So it's really tempting when you're in the field to go for the most juicy and prolific looking plants, but doing so can alter our collection to be less genetically diverse in doing so and introduces bias. So yeah, just make sure you're sampling from a whole bunch of different plants that might look sickly or really good. But yeah, doing those seed cut tests to make sure that the seed is viable is also important. So kind of a balance there of those two things. Also have a rough estimate of the amount of plants sampled from. From this, you can use a little hand clicker. You can also sort of guesstimate by counting for every 10 species that you collect from. And you can also do a timed collection is what I like to call it. So time yourself for a minute and see how many plants you collect from, and then multiply the amount of minutes by the time you've actually collected to do a full amount that you sampled from. That's the strategy I usually use. You can also determine collection routes before beginning. So again, that's some geographic sampling that we saw on our field maps. And then here's our two strategies that we use when we're actually collecting, either collecting from every 5th plant or collecting 20% from each plant. You can use your best judgment with this. Just make sure that you all are using the same consistent sampling strategy when collecting from that same population. That just makes sure that we're not overlapping the collections that we're doing. There's a few species and different plant habits that each of these are good for. So rhizomatous plants tends to be better to collect from every 5th plant because you, again, might have those shooters going underground. So you might be sampling from the same plant if you're collecting 20% from each multiple times. Also dense populations. So again, things that are really close together, trying to spread out the amount you're collecting from is really important. Taking 20% from each is sort of the inverse of that. So if a population is more spread out, it's better to collect from each individual plant. And then also species with intermediate inflorescences. So that just means that they might be ripening at different points along the stem. We have a lot of plants that might be flowering and also have developed seed at the same time. An example of this could be Nacella virigula. So green needlegrass becomes ready for collection more near the base of the inflorescence than towards the top. I think maybe it's the other way around. I'm sorry. It is ready for collection at the top first. And then once you start to go down the inflorescence, it becomes less developed. So for that one, you'd want to just collect 20% off each top. And again, yeah, the ultimate goal is to be able to collect from 10 to 20 geographically distinct populations in each ecoregion or the provisional seed zone. This is what it takes to have a working restoration seed bank. It takes up to 10 to 20 individual collections, which ends up being a lot when we work across 5 different ecoregions and up to 10 different provisional seed zones. So it does take a lot of collections to be able to have that. Wanted to show you a little bit what these strategies might look like when you're on the ground. So you can see here that they're not just sampling from a row and every 5th, they're actually choosing different specimens, again, of different flowering amounts and different sizes so that they get that geographic and genetic diversity. And some species that might be good for this on our target list include Bouteloua gracilis, Festuca idahoensis, and Pseudoroganaria spicata. So really grasses that are rhizomatous in nature is what I'd recommend this for. Then collecting from 20% of each plant, here's some examples of that. I already went over Nacella virigula. You can see there that it is indeed the top that is fully developed before the bottom. Heterotheca villosa, this one is very well known to be flowering, developing seed, and dispersing seed at the same time. So it's really nice to be able to collect this from one tuft of head inflorescence at a time. And then Retibita columnifera, also just collecting the top of that seed head could be good. We also want to strive for even geographic sampling of the population we're within. So that can look like any of these strategies. This is another thing that you want to discuss with your team before you begin. So if you might just have one person, you can go across the entire polygon. If you've got two people, you might be meeting in the middle. And if you've got multiple, you might just be working in lines. It's also good to note here that we create polygons through streaming on field maps. So there's also going to be one person who's drawing that polygon boundary and collecting along the boundary as you go. Yeah, and that'll be one of our technicians or crew leads here. Also good to know what counts as a population. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to tell one population from the next. So here's some good strategies to know what we count as a population here. It's defined for us as one consecutive area within the same plant community type at the US NVC, which is the US National Vegetation Classification Alliance or Association level. So at this level, you're looking at 2 or 3 different species that are dominant within that area and have the same plant cover habit. So if it's within a montane grassland, it might just be like a Pseudoroganaria and Calaria macrantha dominant grassland. And once you leave that grassland, you go into a forest boundary, you're within a new population. There's also some good geographic markers. This could be ridges, roads, and rivers as they inhibit gene flow. So crossing a road counts as a new population, crossing a river, etc. And then generally separation by over 1 kilometer in continuous stands of a species. So if you're going for a really large population across a very large grassland, for example, then we might do that separation by 1 kilometer. It's very rare that we'll be collecting more than 1 kilometer at a time. So it's what I'll say here. Yeah, and then I've got 2 examples of distinct populations in these photos as well. So on the left-hand side, you can see that there's some roadside disturbance. That's mostly Aristata purpurea or purple threon. And then you can see that once you get further out into the grassland there, the population changes, the composition of species changes. And that's the same with this here. You can see that you're sort of in a wildflower forward meadow, and then you transition into a shrubland, more in the background there. So those are distinct populations. We also have a few sampling techniques that you can use and a few examples of families or genuses that you might use these strategies for. Stripping is the most common and widely accepted method that we use to collect seed, and it's also the most preferred by seed extractories. So both Bend Seed Extractory and Coeur d'Alene prefer stripping just because it leads to less woody and dense plant material within the collection bags, so it's easier to process later. This is great for all raminoids, Brassicaceae or mustard, and again, most species. These other ones are more the exception. So plucking is good for berries, low-hanging fruits, Asteraceae that have villus hirsute cypselae, which is sort of very fluffy inflorescences. So Heterotheca villosa would be a great example of when you're plucking. It's the same sort of as stripping, but just taking it off of the individual stems like so. You can also use tennis rackets, hand taps, or bats to collect seed. This could be good for penstemon, Asteraceae with chaff collapsing capsuling, which is sort of like sunflowers generally. And then also capsule-like fruits are good for this. You can also use clipping or stem cutting for a lot of these, so it depends on what materials you have available to you. And you'd want to lay down a tarp if you were to do the tennis racket method. There's also traps. So the word here, explosively dehiscent seeds, is referring mostly to species within the violet family. These explode when they become fully ready, fully ripe. So you can put on something like a little bridal gift bag on the seed head to capture all of those seeds. That's sort of a specialized technique that we probably won't be doing for such a large program here. But if you're within an individual forest and you've really wanted to have Viola nataliae in your collection, it might be good to think about doing some traps for that. And then also we might run across sharp, hard to remove seed or ones that are not fully developed. There are some species that you can collect when it's on the verge of being developed. And to do so, you'd want to collect up to 6 inches of the stem and let it dry naturally in open air setting to see if we can get more viable seed that way when it's still developing to develop it further. So here's some species that you might use stripping for. Again, we've got Bouteloua gracilis and then Festuca idahoensis. So 2 really good grasses for this. Plucking, Thermopsis rhombifolia and Thermopsis montana are good species for this. So is Heterotheca villosa, as I mentioned. Hitting or shaking could be Penstemon albetus or other species within the Penstemon genus. And that's what one of those little seed capsules looks like on Penstemon, or Helianthus pauciflorus. This is our sunflower. It has seeds that are much like Helianthus annuus, so annual sunflower. Here's what those seed traps might look like. So this is one of those bridal gift bags I was mentioning. Yeah, you can get these from Michael's for pretty cheap, so it's a good strategy if you're doing more specialized collections. Clipping for things like Claria macrantha makes sense. Claria macrantha has very, very light colored seeds that are hard to see. They're very small, so it's good to collect the stems and then shake it out later. And we can use the dissecting microscopes to look at some of those so you can see what a developed seed looks like too, because those are a bit tricky. And then Artemisia tridentata. This might also be good for that. Now going into some collection protocol. This is going to be a lot of bullet points, so I'll try my best to make it as enthusiastic as possible. So that first one is confirming that there are 50 individuals or more at natural dispersal. Again, this is ensuring that we have that genetic diversity available to us, at least 90% of available alleles within that population. We'll examine a representative group of seeds using a seed cut test. This is to estimate the frequency of empty or damaged seeds to make sure that we're collecting from a fully viable population. We'll also collect mature dry seeds in brown paper bags and or large plastic hip bags. I can show you guys an example of those in a little bit too. It essentially has a belt strap around it and then one shoulder strap like a satchel and sits on your hip. And yeah, this is just to collect seed with the highest maximum viability and to maximize their storage life. We collect seeds directly from plant stems or trim stems, as I said, up to 6 inches and remove any large debris. So this is to maximize collection time. We want to be really efficient when we're out in the field and allow seeds to be cleaned and prepared in controlled laboratory settings. So it's okay if you collect some plant material, including stems or leaves. We try and avoid collecting anything like seeds or putting clippers in seed bags. Seeds of Success have seen this before, and it can really mess up their machinery since it's such fine matter that we're using. So yeah, just make sure that you're only collecting seeds and also not collecting any noxious weeds within your seeds. I also mentioned creating at least a 20-foot buffer between yourself and the nearest road. Yeah, so this is again making sure that the population isn't seeded and that there's not a lot of disturbance within the population we're collecting from. We also check intern and volunteer collections before combining our plant material, just to make sure that we've all got the species ID right. That's something we do back here in the office with the dissecting microscope. Yeah. Got a few more here. So use even geographic sampling across the entire site and sample from plants of various heights, colors, size, and so forth. And then also maintaining a record of the number of individuals sampled. That's a really big bullet point. This is really, again, just to ensure high genetic diversity across the population. Then we also maintain the record of the number of individuals sampled. I put up the little equation that I was mentioning here for time sampling again. So yeah, just time yourself for a minute and how many plants you collected from in those seconds. And then divide it by an hour and you'll have the number of plants sampled in an hour. Yeah, and you can multiply that by the number of hours you've worked too, if you're doing a very long collection. Oops. Yeah, and then just that last little bullet point there is also very important. Collect no more than 20% of the viable seed. Again, this is just in making sure that that sampled population remains stable and that we're doing sustainable work here. Our whole goal is to make sure that these forests are well maintained and well cared for. So we want to make sure that we're not oversampling from populations to do that. Collect at least 50,000 PLS, which is pure live seed per pooled collection. Again, this is just enabling the maximum use of collections. A lot of seed, even when put in the best conditions, does end up not reseeding itself very well. So just using more seed than we think we need is important. We send collections to a USFS funded seed extractory and nursery for cleaning, processing, and grow out operations. Again, I've mentioned Coeur d'Alene. Bend Seed Extractory is another one that we think about for this. We just like to make sure that these are large, stable, and well-developed seed extractories that we're using. Cleaning helps to prolong the life of the seed and ensures the purity of the collection. So again, making sure that we don't have any of those invasives or noxious weeds in there, sort of a double check for our own work. Yeah, and we also almost always have our populations that we collect from grown out the next year at that nursery. So the 2023 seed is being grown out right now at Coeur d'Alene, which is pretty exciting. Yay!
Field trip. Nope, just kidding.
Yeah, I guess we'll go. And then we also like to estimate the quantity of viable seed for every collection site using the Survey 123 pre-collection form. This is an adapted method of what Seeds of Success does. It essentially takes into account how many seeds there are per individual inflorescence, how many inflorescences there are per plant, and then divides that by 20% so that you have the amount of viable seed that is available for collection. And that's just built within our form. So yeah, anyone using our Survey 123 form doesn't have to do it by hand, which is pretty nice. And then finally, we also like to clearly label all of our bags with the appropriate collection ID, time, and area within district. So I've got an example of how we did this last year up here. You can see the time is marked at the top. We use military time, so there's not any confusion. The general location, which is Forest Service Road 210. And then at the bottom here, this really long thing, that is our unique collector ID. So it includes the USDA plant code, Festuca idahoensis. It then has the provisional seed zone, which is the Southern Rockies, 0 to 510 humid area. It has the Forest Service regional code. So Region 2, Forest Service Unit 15, Area 02. I don't remember which one that is right now. And then it has the date here at the bottom. We'll also include this year an 01 or 02 at the end of this if we are collecting multiple of the same species within the same day so that there's no overlap. Yeah. So now on to field documentation. This is an interactive part. If you all would like to use our Survey 123 forms and our field maps, I'd like to show you how to do so now. So yeah, I'll just screen share how to get to this resource. Okay. The very first thing you'll need is to go to ArcGIS Online and you'll want to sign into one of our CNHP guest accounts to access this. So for people here in the office, technicians, we use CNHP Guest 4. And then for you folks online, for service partners, I think we use CNHP Guest 7. Let me see if I put those credentials here on the slide.
Can our folks in the room do this?
Yes.
On tablets?
Yeah,
or
would you mind doing this on those tablets, actually? That'd be super helpful.
Are they? Yes, okay.
They should be, yeah, set up for it. Here, I'll just show those credentials on the screen now too, so you all have access to that.
Gives me notes. Becky, you can do it on your laptop.
Okay, so here are those credentials for everyone in the room. We've got one for CNHP staff at the top and for Forest Service and Colorado Native Plant Society members at the bottom there. And again, you can go to ArcGIS online, and the app that you'll want to download for your phone for this part is Field Maps from ArcGIS. Yep.
So if you're on a tablet, should you go right to field maps or still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
field maps.
Field
I
maps.
think one of those has it, and I can't remember which one.
Look now. Field map.
Okay. So here we go. Once you're signed in, hi Donna, come on in.
Hi.
No, you should be.
Very quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're doing some access stuff right now. For everyone online in the room, this is Donna Sharrock, the regional ecologist for the Forest Service. Donna, these are our technicians and our crew lead this year. If you all would like to introduce yourself.
I'm Curtis Trigg, crew lead.
I'm Anna.
I'm Eva.
Cheers.
And Becca.
Okay, so once you're signed in using those CNHP credentials, you'll see the Colorado State University login page. From here, you'll want to go to groups here at the top.
Yeah.
And this is for computer access again. I'll go over how to use it on phones and tablets here in a second.
Gotcha.
And the group that you're going to want to be accessing is the USFS-R2 sharing group,
Okay, yeah.
or the USFS seed collection form only group, and that's for Forest Service Partners login.
I don't think I have that group.
Do you have field maps on this?
Yeah, so we were on field maps and it wanted us to log in and we were online to like find the credentials, but I think
But I can send it.
maybe you will let us know. They want us to sign in.
What's really
Do you
nice about
know the login?
the ArcGIS guest
She just
credentials
set it
is,
up.
yes, I'll show that again.
Yeah, please, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, what's really nice about this
Okay,
is
there it is.
there can be as many devices and
Uh-huh.
people logged into the same account
So we
as
want
we need,
this for.
where there's no limit for ArcGIS accounts.
CNHP.
Oh, block it. Better.
Underscore.
Underscore. Wait,
You're already in the right spot?
I'm sorry.
Well, that was nice.
Yeah, that was nice.
That one's already all has some downloaded stuff, yeah.
Oh, there it is. And then
Great.
there's,
No, I have access in my own account.
oh,
I guess I can
yeah,
find out.
7
Yeah.
or 4.
I'll get you access for your.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's
Oh.
If you want to sign into
Can
the
you
next
go
one
back
for
to
now. Yeah.
Thank you. Colorado species before.
Colorado and species.
I don't. When I, do you not have the? Like, mine just takes me to EID login and then it takes me to my account.
So you're just gonna want to go to ArcGIS.
So like
login.
it's normal,
Yes,
though, or.
it's normal
affiliation?
I guess you can't access it with the guest account is saying unable to open, don't have permissions to access this resource. But maybe I wasn't supposed to go to that map. I was thinking this map. Right? And I clicked it and
So, And
But you can do the other ones.
Guess 4, guess 7.
Yeah, guess
Yeah,
what?
guess what?
Okay, well, I can update permissions for that.
Okay.
It's strange that you can't access online.
Oh.
Failed. Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll work through that. This is good. We're looking over this right now.
yeah, yeah, the other ones work, but the main collection map. Yeah, this one is this,
Okay.
guess, is it logged into guess board?
That one's logged into
I'm not gonna
mine.
check because I'm scared.
Yeah.
But this is the.
Okay, and from here, you should be able to see our 2024 collection survey and 2024 pre-collection form. You can scroll down to view all group content at the bottom of either this group or again, the USFS Seed Collection Survey Only group. Again, that's at the top of the tab here on ArcGIS Online.
Okay, so we're having trouble with what's online to CNHP's guest 7 username. Getting the message username you entered is not a member of the organization.
Okay, let me try and log into one of these guest accounts then.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know, Cheryl, and
Oh, yeah, you're in. Yes.
give it a try.
well, and I'm wondering how many people can be on guest board at the same time if they're.
It should be unlimited.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Maybe it's because I don't have your section.
Oh, maybe it's a caps thing, I wonder.
It
I'll,
might
I'll,
be.
I'll try lowercase.
Valid. Oh, no. Tom should have put that for us.
So I was able to log in, but the only group I'm in is the USFS Seed Collection Survey only. I was not getting yeah, that one right
Okay.
there.
This
Not
is the
the
right
other
group
group.
then. You're in the right place.
Okay.
It's for the survey and the scouting/collection map for Forest Service partners. So again, you'll just want to scroll down to view all group content within this one for Forest Service folks. You can go through it this way. The things you'll want to be aware of are this form. I'll change it to say final version once we've tested everything again and made sure that it's working. But you are welcome to use version 3 at this time. And that is a form you'll notice here at the bottom. So form is the one that you want to use for surveys, and web map is what you'd like to use for collection maps.
So can we just pause a second? Is everybody on online? Are you, anybody having trouble still, or is everybody caught up? Okay.
I haven't gotten in past the username and password yet, but you can keep going. It might be a problem on my end.
Yeah, for logging in, I will say that it might pop up with your organization's login. Let's see what it looks like on my page here. So. Once you hit sign in, this might be closed down, ArcGIS login, and it might say Forest Service or EID login. You're going to want to uncollapse that and then put in the CNHP guest credentials here instead of in the EID or Forest Service login.
Yeah, and just send me a chat if you're having trouble and I'll try to work through it with you.
Yeah. New tech is always challenging. I
Yes.
find never going to be easy. So let me just show you what our collection and scouting map looks like for this year. 2024 collection map, and again, we're looking for that web map. So you can go ahead and click on the name or on the picture. If you click on the name, it'll show you this page. It just gives you a few details about the item. It also will show you all of the layers here that are involved. These are all through a hosted feature layer so that they're accessible online. And I'll make sure that we have sharing permissions correct for CNHP guest use. Yes, it's just seed collection, capital asking capital C07.
Oh, somebody got it. Thank you, Amanda.
Cool. Okay, and once you've opened this map up, give it a second to load, and it'll show you our region. It has a few layers open right when you first look at it. To see which layers are on, you click on the left-hand tab, Layers here. And again, this is all for computer use. And then you can click these visibilities on or off. So you can see right now we have those 2023 survey points, our state boundaries, major roads, provisional seed zone, and forest boundaries on. And I'll go through each of these layers. For every single one of these, you are able to click on a feature that you're interested in. And after a second, a little pop-up will come up that gives you details about this. Since I'm on my laptop, it's not showing the top bit. There we go. So for our previous survey points, it'll give you the USDA code at the top here, so Poa Secunda. It'll give you some information about it, including the location, elevation, and then the really important stuff here at the bottom is evidence of disturbance or damage, the approximate number of plants that are accessible at this location, and then what the phenology was at the time of the scouting. So you can see when we were there last year, almost 70% of it was still developing seed. So we selected immature and decided not to collect seed this past trip. And that was at June 29th. So pretty early at that point. And that's true for any of these survey points. So again, you just want to click on them and a little pop-up will come up. You can also see here, it says 1 of 7. You can click these little arrows to see the next object that comes up. So if there's multiple survey points within the same area, they're all here together. It shows all layers that are visible. So it's also telling us that we're in the state of Wyoming right now. At Lewis Lake, that's the major road that it's off of. The provisional seed zone that is there, the one that's right next door to it, and then the national forest that it's within. Other things that we have accessible to folks using these maps are iNaturalist observation points. These are for all of the 2024 priority species this year. And what's really nice about these is that it gives you the original creator's source at, where is that? Here, the URL. So if you want to check observations from iNaturalist, which you probably would, they're all going to be research grade and wild, not cultivated collections. It'll show you an image of what they saw there. So small flower beard tongue. And yeah, you can go ahead and check IDs for yourself for this on iNaturalist if you would like to. We also have SciNet observation points. So these are a little bit more reliable, more of the time, I'd say. These are herbarium collections. And all of these points I'll also mention are recent. So nothing that is older than 20 years is within here, just to make sure that we have the most accurate observations available to people. These ones pop up again with that USDA code. And you can also view the source features for this right here under references. We also have the collection polygons layer. This is the field maps layer that we use to collect polygon data for collections. So that's the one when we're on field maps we use to do the streaming. And then we also have 2023 collections, which is last year's populations. Let me see if I can't zoom to one of those. Anyone I'm sure. And they show up as little polygons. 2023 collections have little dashed lines through them, and the collections you'll be making this year have a red outline and nothing in the middle, just so you're able to tell them apart. And also for these 2023 collections, you're able to click on them again, see what was collected there and what order it was collected. So this was the 14th collection that we made as a program. It again gives you that unique identifier there. And I think that's pretty much what it gives you for this. It'll also give you a shape area for the area that we collected within. We also have some motor use vehicle maps built into field maps. I will say that these are clipped to Forest Service boundaries, and I would still use Avenza MoveM maps because these are raster layers, so some of the tiles might not have loaded fully correctly, but they are a good reference point to some of the major Forest Service roads that you might be seeing, like these ones within Pawnee. Yeah, and you can probably take a guess that this road connects up to the next one. It just goes through private land before doing so. Again, that provisional seed zone is visible right now. It's that very nice, pretty pastel layer that you're able to see. We turn that off and turn this on, you're also able to see which ecoregions we're in. So the Southern Rockies here in Colorado is this sort of camel green color. We also have High Plains in the light blue, and these are clipped to Almernick US EPA level 3. So it's the second smallest geographic scale that's available for that. Let me turn off major roads so you can see that better. I can't remember exactly how many ecoregions are within region 2. Is it 7?
And the most common ones, I think we did 5, but I think there might be 9, but.
Okay. Smaller bits,
Yeah.
yeah. We also have geology layers. So this is low lithic or parent material. It might take it a second to load. It's a kind of large layer. There we go. This helps us know just what material is underlying our soil. We use the USGS soil survey to know what type of soil material and texture we're using or we're collecting from. And then we have ownership layers, which are very important. Again, this is a raster layer, so it might take a little bit longer to load when you're actually on field maps. And this is referenced to the color wheel of different land agencies. So they should all be accurate with what you know on land agency maps. This is Park Service. Forest Service is the green color. If we scroll up to a state like Wyoming, you can also see all of the private is within white here. So yeah, we like to make sure we're on Forest Service land for all collections we make. And then if that'll turn itself off, there we go. Oop. There we go. The very last thing we have is ranger districts. So within each forest, there are multiple ranger districts. And we use ranger districts for safety contacts and also to know what locality we are collecting from specifically. So these are all in a nice green gradient. And that's what's within our collection map. To get this on a tablet, what you're going to want to do is go to the App Store that's within your phone, on the tablet, or here online, and you can look up field maps like this. For online folks, you'll want to look up download at the end. And the icon should look like this. This is Field Maps Designer, so not the tool that's right for online. Let's see what it looks like. There it is. Yeah, so it's available on Google and the App Store. Once you've had that downloaded, you should be able to sign in using those same guest credentials. I'll make sure sharing permissions are correct for this map following this meeting, so that both guest accounts have access to all maps online and offline. I've drawn a few offline areas. Let's see if I can't show you what those look like. Hey, that's great. And once you click on the one that says 2024 Collection Map V2, it'll show you the offline areas that are available to download. Yeah, and it'll also show you which forests are within those offline areas, which is pretty helpful. So you can also draw your own offline areas if you'd like a smaller, more detailed one. If you're working within a particular forest this year, that might be a good one. But for us, we're working regionally. We have each forest unit available to download on your phone. Yeah, and that's field maps. I'll stop sharing this now and go back to the presentation. Do we have any questions with field maps or ArcGIS Online before I move on?
Are you doing survey 1, 2, 3 on that? Incredible.
Okay, great. Get back to this then. Being a little slow on me. Oh. Yeah, so now to survey 1, 2, 3. These are the two forms we're using. The pictures look a little bit different. Yes, Mandy.
Question about, I don't know if I'm going to be able to log out of like the way I log into Aggle on a tablet. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that and have all my field forms synced. Is there, I don't know, like if you guys, would you take like GPS points for potential sites over you going through the full field form? If you're just looking for sites.
Yeah, that's a good question. We could take GPS points as well. If you want to draw your own shape files or just provide us with coordinates, that's totally all right. We can build these into the forms ourselves as well. It is all nice to have it within the same hub, but yeah, we understand that there are sometimes challenges with using new tech or having different accounts. We can also add your ArcGIS Online accounts. I think Forest Service Partners usually have your own. So if it's easier and more convenient for you all to have it on the same account, you can either send a chat here or send me an email with your Forest Service login credentials, and I'll add you to those same sharing groups that I just showed.
It's just, it's hard enough to log into the survey 1, 2, 3 just using a Forest Service login. So
Yeah,
it wasn't letting me
absolutely.
pull it up.
Yeah, so
just
coordinate points are
figuring out
great for
here.
us too. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, and now on to survey 1, 2, 3. Let me find the right one. Nope, that's not the right one.
Oh, yeah, I was a little behind.
Oh yeah, sure.
So do you think I should just download all of the map layers into my phone?
If you plan on going to all of the Forest Service areas with us, you can. You might notice that those are large files, sometimes up to like 1.2 gigabytes. So again, if you're working within a smaller area and you don't have access to a tablet, which can have higher storage space, you might want to download a few areas at a time. You can also undownload things later. So yeah, okay, this is the right one. So for survey 1, 2, 3, this is also available on ArcGIS. Sorry, this is also available on the Google Play Store and the App Store. So compatible with both of those products. And it's also compatible with all computers. So you'll want to search survey 1, 2, 3 on an App Store or survey 1, 2, 3 download for your computer. And for this one, there are two different versions of survey 1, 2, 3. So you'll see there's one called Field App and one called Connect. Connect is where you build all your surveys. So you're going to want to have the Field App accessible for you. So if you're online, you'll want to get it from Microsoft, and it'll pull you to the Microsoft Store. This is what it'll look like upon downloading. Just make sure that you click on the installer helper to make sure that you download it properly. And once you have it downloaded, it'll have this little notebook icon with the green check mark through it. And again, these guest credentials are the same for that. And I'll pause here for any questions or time to download. Yeah.
CNHP for underscore guest.
It is.
Colorado species 07.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no. Seed
No,
collection.
these,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seed collection 07, seed and collection are capital
But I'm not supposed to use 7, am I?
You can use 4.
Okay.
A. Okay, yeah, then it's 04. The same thing. It's Colorado species 04.
Okay. I'll reshare now. The survey 123. This is what it looks like when you pull up survey 123. And yeah, I'll make sure to add you guys that are putting your credentials in the chat. Thanks for doing that. If you're new to survey 123, there won't be any forms available here. Instead, there'll just be a big button here that says download surveys. If you are logged in and you have surveys, you can click on your little icon up here in the corner. So mine is AC, and then that's where you'll find the download surveys button. For this, you can go ahead and search pre-collection. Oops. There it is, pre-dash collection for this. And it's the one that has this Parabolus cryptandrus seeds with a nice blue background. And you'll see the little cloud icon with the down arrow. That will download it for you. You can see that I already have it downloaded, which is why I've got the little spiral guy. And for the survey form, you can go ahead and search 2024 survey. Or how about 2024
Collection.
underscore? No, there's this is good to test. Okay, yeah. So if you search up the full name for people who have multiple surveys, 2024 collection survey dash CNHP USFS R2.
Yeah, I'm getting old stuff when I'm logged into. Oh, so- okay.
Search, where it's just also right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you now.
Thank you. Yeah. And then once those are downloaded, they'll appear on your main page here. So again, to get there from download surveys, you just click this little back arrow that's in the top left-hand corner, and your survey should pop up here. You can see I have a lot of versions of the survey available. So the one we're using is all of our collectors from last year. This is from the CONIP's annual conference, and then this Parabolus cryptandrus seed one. So I'll show you a few features of these online. You'll want to hit the collect button when you're ready to create a survey form. And there's a few things that are required. These are all marked by this little red star here. Lots of them will autofill if you click on them, such as the date. For location, I like to be able to click on the map, and then you want to make sure your satellite is turned on here so that your location is accessible. And it'll also give you an accuracy reading here. So we're within a building, which means our accuracy is lower right now. If we were outside, it would be higher. Let me scroll a little slower than that. I think it said within 81 meters, right? So we've got some more accuracy right now. It'll ask you for the coordinate source. If you're using the built-in coordinates, it'll always be GPS with the accuracy of GPS. In WGS 84 datum, these are all auto-populated fields for you. And then it'll also auto-populate your latitude and longitude right here. For elevation, you're going to want to go ahead and click that satellite button again. And usually, if we have better accuracy, it'll give you an altitude right here below latitude and longitude, and that's within feet. I happen to know we're at 4971 here because I've been using this survey so much. And then we also have ranger districts. This is an auto-populate field, so it'll show up with ones once you start typing. That's what that means. We'll say we're within Canyon Lake since I think that's the closest ranger district right now. And once you put put in the ranger district, it'll auto-populate the forest name that you're within. Again, this is just really trying to make this form as efficient and quick as possible. It's a little bit better than a paper form that way, just so that you're not having to repeat the same things over and over again.
Can I ask you a question, Ally? So when I go to hit elevation, no little satellite pops up
If you
like on
scroll to the
yours?
top page.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I can.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
So it is there.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it'll always be on the very top bar.
And Ellie, some of the auto-populate fields, can you override that if you wanted to put in a different location or something? If you, for some reason, didn't like what it put in there, is that an option?
Give me an example.
Well, let's say the coordinates are wrong.
Okay, yeah, if the
And
coordinates
my,
are
my
wrong.
other device says, oh, no, it's this, and I believe that.
Oops,
I'm just curious.
I'm not sure why that just flipped that.
Or if you had each a different data.
I can make it so that that's possible.
I don't know that, I mean, you would know if you would ever need to. I'm
Yeah,
just curious, if-
yeah.
or like the date, oh, I did this yesterday, but I didn't enter it till today, that kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's just another.
Yeah, you are able to
You can
look up.
enter
Yeah, so you can enter coordinates up here at the top. So if you want to be like negative 40.5, 100, whatever that is, it'll pull you to those coordinates. And then you just click the check mark and it should change them here as well. Mhm.
So that would be a route. I think the point is that you can use this when you're not standing in the field.
That's right, yeah. So if you were at Pikes Peak yesterday, but you're not there today, you can look up those coordinates.
Well, that one's in my.
Lots of Pikes Peak. I didn't know there were so many Pikes Peak. There we go. Yep, and it'll pull you to the coordinates. Yeah, and you can enter direct coordinates in decimals for this. Yep. Next, area within districts is a little bit more general. For this, we often use Forest Service road names, trail names, if we're within a natural area or research boundary.
Yeah, that's different.
So this is just a short title so that we're able to reference the collection later. We use abbreviations for roads. So FS is Forest Service. We also use county road as CO like this. Mhm.
No,
Yeah.
CR.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you. CR and then CO for Colorado. Yeah. Location details is where we like a little bit more detail. For this, you can give approximate directions from the nearest largest land site. So if we were within Pawnee National Grassland, we might say from Alt, take this major road and then use cardinal directions. So turn west onto Forest Service Road 210. You can be as detailed as you want with this. The more detailed, the better for us. Yeah, I'd say start with a town or provenance, go to the major road, and then use connectors when possible. You can use mileage between each one as well. So if it's 2 miles from one road to the next, if you want to be detailed like that, that's great for us.
Well, and I will say, if it is a day, we've got this set up, so like the fourth and fifth day of your hitches, there will be volunteers. So being able to tell the volunteer that you're traveling like 2.2 miles down the road, like sometimes it's like, where's the gate? But you've been looking at this fence line for miles, so mileage is helpful for the
Yeah.
volunteers.
That's great to know. Mhm. Then we ask for landscape photos if this is a scouting trip specific. So for a landscape photo, we really want to be able to see what type of plant community we have. I don't know why I keep trying to put it back there. Plant communities, again, are at that US NBC Alliance or Association level. Scrolling's a little finicky on computers. I will say you really want to use the scroll bar on the side. And this is really to help us determine that plant community later. That's what landscape photos are great for. It can also give us a good idea of what disturbance might be there or what it might look like later in the season, how it's different from how it was when we previously scouted it. Then you'll notice that there's a section that says to be completed for scouting operations only. And again, this is to help us do that vegetation classification system. So we want dominant vegetation. This pulls up a list of available species within the region. It's a very, very long list. If you don't find something that's in there though, you can say other. Nope, I'm sorry, none. I can't remember what I programmed it to say. Unsure, not in database, that's it. Yeah, so if you put in unsure or not in database, you can go ahead and put in a note of what species you saw if it's not in there, but hopefully you should be able to find it by searching either common name or scientific name.
And so then, right here, like, if we were in any of those most popular habitats, the dominant cover would be the trees.
Right, yeah, so you want to consider different layers when you're thinking about this too. If you're within a wooded area, you'll want to consider which tree species is specifically the highest dominant vegetation. And then you'll also want to consider the understory, what has the most dominant vegetation for that as well. To add multiple species, you hit this little plus sign that's in the bottom right-hand corner. You'll see it now says 2 of 2. And you can put in a new species here. And you can do this as many times as you want. Again, we really like to have at least 3 species to have the best understanding of the area. And then we also have, following this one, an optional form for species of significance. So if you know your plant community really well, and you know that there is a species that's within this assemblage of plants that isn't within a very similar community type, this is where it's great to put that. That's called the diagnostic species for a plant community. You can also include additional target species. So for multiple collections, again, if there's not just one target species, you can put that in here. If you're noting any invasives or noxious weeds there, and also rare plants. So it's kind of the catch-all category for anything else that might be significant, but isn't a dominant vegetation. For all of these, you can also include photos. Again, that can be for unsure of identification, or if you're seeing damage to plants, you might also want to include a photo of them here. Then we get into species information. So this is for the specific species that you are planning a collection for. This target species list has all of those 52 species, so it includes opportunistic ones, I'm pretty sure. And these are all just by scientific name. Again, at the bottom, there's an other or none category. Other will enter, you can enter a new USDA code or scientific name if it's not available within our priority collection list. We also like an approximate area of population. It doesn't have to be exact, but just an estimate of how many acres this population covers. This can be in decimals too, if it's smaller than an acre. And if there's any evidence of disturbance or damage while you're there. So these are the drop downs of the ones that we have. Again, there's an other category, which gives you a new pop-up and an option for no damage. You can also select multiple categories if you're seeing many different types of damage. Yeah.
Just going back one field, like estimating the area, I found that to be somewhat challenging.
Yeah.
But if you are not making the polygon yet, you can like walk your paces across like 2 planes of the area and then multiply them.
Yeah, that's a great note.
But then it won't be acres, so you'll have to convert to acres.
That's
it will be square feet. So
yeah. And once we do our polygons, there's a conversion feature that will convert the square footage to acres once we're actually collecting. So we have a more proper estimate.
Could you even do a reference like, I don't know, 5-acre football field? I mean, just to kind of.
Yeah, that would be helpful. We can definitely put in a reference size here. That is not.
or let's just ask like how many paces for you is it across making acre?
To make an acre? Ooh, I don't know. No, but I could probably walk from the end of this room to that one and then do it across this way.
Maybe
Yeah,
later
as you
we
said.
can just roll out a tape and just mess around with our faces in the hallway.
That's true. Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
Because
We
the
can put in some
convert, like an
references for
acre
that.
is not a square, it's not like 1,000.
It's a little bit of an odd number.
It's an English metric system. English system measurement.
What's the difference between resown and seeded?
I don't know. We can, yeah, just include one of those fields, I suppose. Is resown a specific type of seeding method, or is it just a general term?
I mean, it sounds like it was seeded again.
Yeah, maybe seeded twice.
Not how you would know that, just standing there. Yeah.
Yeah, this is an adapted field from the Seeds of Success one, so, but we can take off options too if we find that it's confusing.
Well, is it ever in Seeds of Success that they would like have they would reseed a seed collection area from the thrown out population?
Yeah, maybe it's for later years where they've reseeded with their program seed.
Yeah, but then you'd be restoring your seed collection area. I can't really see them doing it, but
Yeah, I'm not sure. Good question. Moving on to our other fields, this is when we're thinking about phenology specifically. So we'd like an approximate number of individual plants present and accessible. This can be within the 1,000 range. So if you're seeing some like a huge amount of them, you might be like, okay, there's probably about 100,000 here. It doesn't have to be super accurate. You can get a good estimate of this by knowing your acreage and then sort of looking at the small population that you just walked through and then multiplying again to get that number. But it can also just be within the rough like 5,000 range, I'd say, of plants if it seems like a really large population. If it's a smaller population, it's a little bit more important to have those exact numbers. And this is also what helps us auto-populate our seed viability. So I'm going to say that we have about 50,000 individuals within this population. We'd like to then estimate the percentage of population. Population and vegetative growth and post-seed dispersal are a little bit similar. If you know that it's late in the season and it's back in its vegetative state, I'd maybe put the percentage here. If it's early in the season, I might put it more in the vegetative growth here. All of these have to be filled out. So if it's not there, we can say it's a 0. And these all have to add up to 100 to be right. Yeah, that's cool. I think maybe the click share is right there. That's why it's struggling. Oh, I'm just gonna move that up there. Maybe that'll make this easier for us. Nope. Okay, I've got it. You can then select the most frequently occurring seed type. This gives you a drop down from the seed cut test. This is something that you might know. We also have an immature field if you notice that most of the field is still developing. What we really want to see is healthy. For these estimates, what you're going to want to do is click the arrows that are on the right-hand side of that bar. And it'll give you an estimate based on, I'm trying to fill all the fields out that I need to do for this. That's why. Based on your target species that you selected and the individual plants that are present and accessible. So now if we scroll down, you'll see that some of these fill out. 0 indicates that there's no data previously available for this, so it's something that you'll have to do in field. Let's say that there are 3 stems per individual plant for Passiphyrum smithii. Then when you click on seed status, it'll give you a viability calculation result here. So this is the approximate amount of seed that will be available for collection, again, taking in consideration that we only want to collect 20% of that population. So it looks pretty good. Looks like we have enough seed to collect from this population.
Like if you had answered that first question, if those what you're looking at is anything but healthy, would you still collect there? Or would you be like, moving on, because most of it's moldy?
No,
Yeah,
I would
but
probably
this-
move on.
this is a pre-collection survey, so you might choose like not ready. And then the crews might wait a week or something like
Right.
that, right?
Yeah.
So would you not do this when you are collecting too? I mean, it could be that situation, or it could be that you're scouting.
That's right. So this is pre-collection and scouting that we use this form for.
And then if you did have,
I'm just gonna get a t-shirt, is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Hey, everybody.
would it change the calculation? Because you weren't really working with LTC, so you wouldn't necessarily have that many seeds available to collect.
It doesn't, no. That's a good thing to note. We can make it so that it does, though.
Most of it's not healthy. You would just.
I wouldn't, yeah. Honestly, I think as a general rule, if you notice that the majority of the population is anything but healthy, I would move on
But if
from
it-
there. But I would still collect a scouting point.
Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
still scouting, still valuable information to know this seed is all pest infected or whatever,
Right.
so we don't go there.
Yeah, because next year maybe it won't be all pest infected.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, like-
yeah.
We were on the Pike Forest and we collected, this is sort of how the smut thing came out, right? Nick Grace and I were like making voucher specimens of grasses and then we noticed the smut, right? So that form didn't result in a collection, but the pre-collection survey was really important.
Exactly. Mhm. Yeah, and then moving on from there, if you notice that the number of individual plants is at natural dispersal stage and healthy, then you'd want to select over 50 for this. You have to select over 50 to be moving on to collecting seeds for this next question. This one is also a pop-up question, so depending on if you select yes or no, field maps will pop up. This is how we collect or connect our collection polygons to Survey 123 pre-collection forms. If you're at the end of the survey on one of our tablets and you click yes and click field maps, it'll pull you up to the most recent field maps you were on. So you want to make sure that you're on the correct field map project when you're clicking this button for collection.
Can you say that one more time, Ally? 'Cause I
Yes,
missed
yeah.
that. That's important.
Yeah, so for field maps, you'll want to be on the right downloaded offline collection map to take polygon data for that area. So if we're within the Arapahoe Roosevelt National Forest, you'll want to be on that downloaded map. And then the field map will pop up with the collection polygons layer. Does that seem like it's doing it?
Really
Um,
nice.
This one
It-
is.
Is that what it's doing,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
But it's just got the authentication
I just
issue,
took off
Click
all.
off the authentication.
but I've seen the link and everything.
Okay. All right, and then we'll just make sure that you have the sharing permissions. I think that's the issue.
Yeah.
And then the last field that's very important for this form is our primary key here at the bottom. This is just your latitude and longitude and the date. We copy this number to the field maps polygon and the collection survey so that they're all linked to the same unique identifier. You'll notice we have a lot of unique identifiers just to make sure we can really distinguish our populations correctly. If you're scouting for multiple species, you can also create a full another one of these scouting forms here at the bottom, again by clicking that right hand side check mark. It will also tell you if you haven't filled out a required fields to move on to the next one. Oh, there we go. And now you can see that we are able to enter another target species. This is really helpful for when you're scouting again an area that has multiple target species that are all at different stages of development. So it really helps us to capture that.
Grab the stuff.
Yeah, sure, the phenology data. We're interrupting Tuesday.
know.
We're at the CNHP office.
Put that all on. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and we'll take a quick break here for questions before moving on to the collection form. And we can take a quick 5-minute or
Maybe we should.
maybe
do
a
that.
longer break, yeah.
Yeah.
How do online folks feel about taking a 15-minute break? Okay,
Yeah, we're getting some,
Good.
sounds good. Okay,
cool.
you.
Yep, all right, we'll come back in 15 then.
so at 11:15.
Yep.
Should we stop?
What was that?
sounds like a conservative start. I think I will be relying a lot on Google Maps as well, because that will kind of aggregate where humans and their phones are. So just adding that. All right, and now we're doing this prior to receiving their data. Okay, so it's a bit of a little bit of a magic trick. Yeah. I could go for 3.
Okay.
Alrighty, we're gonna come back to it now.
Like, I feel like we have a Novo Nordisk payroll, but I could be. Yeah.
Haley, I don't know if that was for the group. Here, yeah. I'm gonna move us on to the main collection survey now. So this is for, yes, Donna.
From the last session. So you mentioned you could be doing the pre-collection form for multiple species.
Yeah.
Would you do that first? Like do all the species and then go to the collection form? Or would you do like one species through all the steps?
Oh, good question. So if you're doing pre-collection data and you're doing multiple species collections, yeah, I would probably add them all to the pre-collection form first, and then add them all to the collection survey next. Just make sure that you have a copy of those primary keys. So it might be good to put that in like the notes app temporarily. All of them should be about the same if you're collecting within the same latitude and longitude. Actually, they should all be the same. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'd do everything on the pre-collection survey first and then move on to the collection survey. So yeah, again, it's this one. You'll hit the collect button. This one you'll notice doesn't really have any dates or geo points. Again, that's because they are all from this primary key. They're all going to be linked to the same exact point. You will want to make sure that you have all of your latitude and longitude location accessible though, so that this is able to pull a point just automatically for you. The first section of the collection survey is the collector info. So for this, we have a seed collection reference number, which is a unique collection number. This rolls over year to year. So I think we're on collection number 52 now. There's also a document within our OneDrive that we will help keep track of collection numbers with. Yeah.
So now that we have multiple CNHP crews, we have Caitlin and Nick, and so are we all? How are we doing that? Are we going to get, is that the next like collection night?
We should use different ones. So there is an input format that you can use for this. CONIPS collections, we have CONPS, I think. Let me fill it all in. Like the S.
If it only want so many.
Yeah.
Is it that dash?
It will be, or it should be 5 letters followed by a number, and then 3 more numbers to fill this input. We should discuss using different codes for different groups that are collecting. So we might want to do USFS R2 number _01 or 02 or something like that going forward. CONIPS collection should be under CONIPS 01. That's what it is.
Yeah, we can go back to that, but it seems like that would be important to figure out for.
It would be definitely a little bit. Let's see. But yeah, you can see that any combination of letters and followed by a number, and then 3 more numbers after that dash will follow the input satisfaction. So we should discuss how we want to split up different crews for that time.
And so like this year, continuing from last year, are you picking up where?
We are, yeah. We don't want any overlapping numbers is the thing. No. So if we create new reference numbers, so if we're doing USFS R22, for example, -2, then you guys would all start at 0, since it's not a repeating number. This USFS collection ID is that one that you saw on the note card before. This is auto-populated by fields that follow, so I'll come back up to it once we've filled out those fields. You'll want to put in the time started and time ended. Time started is what we use on photos to reference them. So it's auto-populated by the current time, and then you're going to want to fill in when you end the collection. So come back to it once you're done with the collection. Here's where you would put in that recollection original seed reference number so that it's linked to the previous collection that was made at the same site. And then you also want to put in the names of the people that are collecting there. The format for this will be last name, comma, first initial, like that. And you can put in as many different collectors as you want, but do note that it's a required field to fill out each name as you go along. So,
Like in the CONIPS event, are you actually capturing everybody's names?
that's a good question. I feel like we kind of should, but we can also just put in like volunteer 1, 2 or so.
So cold.
It feels cold. Yeah, I feel like we should be putting in every person's name that's at a collection event. For collection data, again, this is where you'll put those target species. Now it's called collected species. And the species collection number. So this is if you're collecting multiple of the same species within the same day. So if we were collecting Claria macrantha more than once, we'd want to put 01, 02, 03, and so forth. And this helps to auto-populate, again, the ID at the beginning. You'll want to include the collection technique you used. Again, you want to be consistent for your collection. So not having one person do 20% and one person do a fifth. They're all on the same method, something you'll want to define beforehand. You should really rarely ever select collecting seeds from the ground because that can be mixed with a whole bunch of different factors. And it'll tell you that you need a reason for collecting from the ground if you do collect from the ground. So, yeah. Include the number of plants sampled. Again, that is the estimate that you can either use the time calculation I showed you for or counting every 10 collection species. So if it's under 50, it'll tell you that you can't complete this survey until that population is above 50. How many plants there were. This helps us to make sure you weren't collecting more than 20%. You can tell those things are important to us.
What does found mean? Again, I'm picturing like Pawnee where they're just like a gazillion,
Yeah.
Boogaloo forever, as far as you can see. How are you defining found?
Yeah, per population boundary. I don't know.
So
if
what you
were
said
here
pretty
for
much in your pre-collection would be the number.
Yes, yes, yeah, that number should roll over from pre-collection to collection form. Yeah, and again, using that 1 kilometer barrier, if it's a large continuous population, roads, rivers, all that stuff. So yeah, plants found in a population. I can update it to say that, so it's a little bit less ambiguous. The average plant height in feet. This can have as many decimals as you want, so you can be as specific as you'd like to with it. Something weird like that. And then any field notes that might assist in the identification of a pressed specimen later. So if there's a detail that you saw on the live plant that would be important, but not quite as visible in a pressed specimen, like the flower might dry pink, but it's actually a bright purple, that sort of thing would be important to put there. Whoops. And then we go into field maps data. So this is all things that we pull from that the scouting map that I just showed on ArcGIS Online. All of these fields should be available once you click on where your location is. It'll pop up with each of these factors. So this is an autofill thing. It'll show you your options based on what you start typing. We'll say we're within the Southern Rockies right now. I think we might actually be on the High Plains. I think that the High Plains goes until the foothills, so let's put that there.
So will this autofill from your location, or you will have to look at the map and get these answers?
You'll have to look at the map and then bring them over. Yep.
Is that because that's what Esri wants us to do, or just too much?
You can't, yeah, unfortunately, it can't take data from field maps and then auto-populate things from the survey within like the same. Or I don't know how to do that. Yeah, that's maybe what I should say. I'm not
Same result.
yet. Yeah. Ranger districts, again, same one that you put on the pre-collection form and the provisional seed zone. You'll notice that this one's pretty specific on what you begin to type. So you'll want to use spaces and dashes. to get to the right one for that. Geology, again, this is from field maps. You'll notice we have quite a wide variety of geologies within the region here. And there should also still be at the bottom a no value. So if there's not one that's pulled from the form, you can select no value and we can input it later. All of these surveys are editable once they've been sent on the same device they were sent from. So that's important. You have to edit it from the same device you originally create the survey on if you are going to edit data on the back end. Yeah, and that's just the way Survey 123 is right now. I wish
So
it was not
you
like that.
shouldn't send it to the computer and then try to edit it? You can.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you can send your surveys to the computer once you're completed with them. If you realize later you want to edit the data, you have to go to the same original device you sent the survey from. So say that you were working on that tablet there, you'll want to edit that survey on that tablet later,
And then
even if it was sent to the computer.
resend it?
It will resend it
It will
automatically.
do it automatically?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, that's good to know.
Yeah. Then this is where you fill out habitat data. You'll notice on the pre-collection it said for scouting only. You can just collapse that on the scouting if you're immediately going on to the collection form, and then fill out that data here. You'll notice that it is required on this form and not required on the scouting form. Yep. So this is the same field as I showed before. Right below it is the same species of significance field as well. Then there's a question about sites disturbance. So this is good to capture changes in sites. So let's say that it was grazed now, but originally it was not. You'd want to select yes, there's been a change. And then you might want to say that it has been trampled and also grazed by cows. Yep, and again, you can select multiple things for this. Landforms, this is something that we kind of just look at the landscape for. We have a video on how to estimate landforms online too. This is a short list that's from Seeds of Success. It should also still have at the bottom here, under or unsure. Yeah.
I don't think it's short, but.
No, yeah. Not sure. Maybe long-ish. Slope, we use a little, what are they called? Inclinometer for slope. So yeah, we have 2 inclinometers per team. Put that in there. Aspect is the compass direction the slope is facing. So it's a little bit different than like, right? That's how it is. The compass direction the slope is facing. Yeah. So looking at your slope, you'll want to position yourself in the tablet that has built-in compass towards the direction the slope is facing, and then put that number into the form here.
You can only pick one, right?
You can only pick one, but there are individual, like
if it's
in
flat?
between. Good question.
If it is variable, but I guess you would just pick like the most like predominant direction.
Yeah,
But there are
times when you can't tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can put in flat there too if there's not really a noticeable aspect. I need to take note of all your things
Well,
after.
this is all the stuff I've done.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes, I can tell you then.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Then there's a photo section. Right after this in the presentation, right after showing you the form, I'll show you how to capture photos for this form. You'll notice that an image identifier did pop up here at the bottom. So that's calculated by the plant's code, who the unique collector ID is, and then after that, you'll want to include A, B, C for each photo. So you'll see at the top here, there's a guide that says, for landscape photos, that's photo A, individual plants is B, and the material collected is C. And we want all 3 of those photos for every collection we do.
And you might have done a landscape photo before, right? Would you use that?
Yeah.
Or would you take another one?
You take another one. Yeah, so the first landscape photo is to get a good idea of the plant community. It won't have the whiteboard in it, and this one will have a whiteboard in it. Or variant vouchers, it'll tell you here if you have a high confidence collection, you only need 2. It's always good to collect more than you think you need. 3 for medium to low confidence collections. Really, we shouldn't be collecting things if we have a confidence to the point where you're like, it could be this species, but I don't know yet. I would say at that point, probably just take scouting data, bring back some reference specimens, including ones that you can take under a dissecting microscope. The date it was taken, and then the herbarium that you think it's going to go to. So we have a few options here. Most of our collections this year are going to go to the working herbarium first, so just the one that's here at the CNHP office. The local herbaria would be the CSU one. We could also send it to regional or the Smithsonian at some point if we felt like we needed to. Yeah. And then it also asks you how confident you are in the species identification. So again, I'd say probably like over 7.5 to 8 is when I'd start planning a collection. And it's always good to check with your partners too, and the other people that are in the field with you, because you guys might have different confidence levels. Then there's a spot for specialist identification. This is for when you're out of the field. You might have a specialist with you in the field. It's fine to input it there as such if you do. Let's say that we had Jessica with us. Again, the format for that would be last name, first initial, like that. And then from what material did she identify it? So if she was in a field with us, if it was on the same date, a different date, or from a photograph. Those are our options there. And then the date that it was identified on. So this is something that we'll go back and edit surveys to put in for that. And then these are all the things you want to know before you walk away from your collection site. Do you have a photo at each level that we just talked about? And do you have at least 2 entire plant specimens to serve as vouchers? Are the bags labeled and properly sealed? And finally, are all of the required fields on this form filled out? It will tell you if a required field is not filled out, but it is good to just go back through the form and check to make sure everything is. These other things are things that we complete in the office. So again, soil texture is from the USGS soil survey. You can put in direct coordinates, and I'll show us all how to do that post field here. And it'll give you an estimate of what type of soil you're looking at. Yeah, which is a little more accurate than taking the little soil in your hand and just guessing. And then also the national vegetation classification. Again, we're trying to know what plant community we have at an alliance or association level. This can be tricky and take a lot of time. So we're going to try and do this after each pitch. But we do have time for it later in the season post collection too, if need be. And then finally, how confident are you in this vegetation classification? So again, a confidence level is important here. You might be less confident in this one. We might have this checked by someone in-house, I think, before we submit these surveys for final review. And then also we have a seed collection raw weight at the bottom here. So that's now in the form part of the survey.
That's good.
Yeah. And now that we have all the fields filled out, if we scroll back up to the top, you'll notice that our USFS collection ID has been filled out. So again, it's been auto-populated. We've got Claria macrantha in the high plains, 10 to 15 semi-humid. Here's that organizational code, the date, and then how many unique collections of Claria were made on that day. So this is the third one of that. Yeah, that's
nice.
the survey. Any questions on the full survey form?
Could you,
Oh, go ahead.
could you scroll back to the geology question that it asks? Okay, so on I guess on the field maps, it's giving you different levels of parent material. What level are you looking for us to fill out in that question?
Low lithic, that's going to be the bedrock material. When you click on the pop-up, that's going to be the one that's at the top bolded in the pop-up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well then, you say you had one more question?
Well, just for the NBC piece, I think since there's like a notes field, I think sort of putting your rationale,
Yeah.
any kind of like clue for why you selected what you did. It also could be it doesn't exist.
Mhm.
So maybe your information doesn't actually fit with an alliance that's already been described. So that could be good information too. And maybe they need to start looking at adding a different alliance or whatever.
Yes, yep.
That is a good point.
That is a really good point. Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, notes on NBC.
Yeah, there's a little feel for it here. We can extend it to be larger
Breadcrumbs
too.
are nice for the, I mean, it's such an iterative. I find it hard to use the hierarchy, like, where do I
Oh,
find Aspen?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and they're working on a map right now. So for the group level, there is a map that the USNBC is working on right now.
For Landfire.
Um, You can also start with Landfire. Yeah, so that's another note. If you're a little bit unsure about the classification, you can start with an ecological community, which is on the Landfire page. Is that right? It's an ecological community
Well, they're doing
classification
groups now
system?
too, like.
Yeah, group is
Yeah.
new, so
Yeah.
that's the
Okay.
new product from NatureServe that is coming out or it is out. We're reviewing it.
Yeah, I think we're reviewing it right now.
I'll look while we chat and see.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay, now bringing us back, we're almost through it. The next thing we need to talk about is those photos that you need to collect. So there are three, as I mentioned, a landscape photo, a photo of an individual, and a photo of the material collected. So we like the whiteboard to be visible in all of these photos. You might notice for the individual, it's a little bit crossed out here. We might try and put it off to the right of the individual if possible to see that whiteboard in. You can also hold the whiteboard up. It's all right if your legs are in the photo for individual or material collected. And also note the location of where we have the whiteboard for these. So for landscape photos, we like to put them in the bottom left-hand corner. For individuals, it's also off to the left-hand side or centered. And then we like to center and do a really close-up shot of the whiteboard for the material collected here. You might also want to capture some photos of things that you might find significant at the collection site. So we had a grass here at one of our previous collection sites that we weren't sure what it was. We thought it was a brome. I'm thinking now it might be Bromus ciliatus, fringed brome. I think so.
I love all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, taking a picture of that, you can take a picture of some up close characteristics. Again, you can take multiple photos for entry. So whatever you need for that is important. If you see any pathogens, so for example, we saw a lot of this smut fungus last year. We're guessing it's because it was a really wet year. Hopefully there will be less of it this year, but you never know. Good to capture those photos if you can. Any bugs you might see on them is good for that. Fire disturbance, grazing, all of that. And then also this is just a picture of what the landscape shot might look like. So you can see here we're in another pretty wildflower forby area. Lots of prairie smoke is available there. Yeah, a lot of prairie smoke. Yeah, you can also note that it has low graminoid cover. So because of all those wildflowers, there's not a lot of graminoids there. And then you can also see that there's kind of a buttercup or another yellow flower that's in this picture. So
Distorted.
and Distorta, yeah, Distortis is also there. So those are all good things to note in this landscape photo. You can also tell that there's a different plant community in the background there. So you can kind of see the edge of the plant community within this photo. So on to storing seed in the field. I've got a few reference pictures here. The most important thing is just to keep it in a cool, well-ventilated place. So this could be under the shade of a tree, under the back seat of the car with the windows cracked in the shade. Yeah, in a cooler with minimal ice, make sure that's not touching the collection bags at all. It's important that the seeds don't get wet as well, because that could cause mold, or it can also just lower the seed viability. So yep, dry, cool, ventilated place is important. So one way to do this is you can also spread out seeds on newspaper if it has been a really wet day and it's not windy the next day, and just let those dry out that way. This can also be good if you have stems to help things develop further after collection. Yeah, and so you can see here, it's under the shade of some aspens, but here it's really in a pretty exposed area, so it would not be good to park there and put seeds in a car there. And then storing seed out of the field. We like to spread out collections to dry once they're out of the field. That can happen for up to 1 to 2 days or until they're fully dry. We also have seed dryers here in-house thanks to the Arapahoe Roosevelt National Forest crews. And that's really good if you have collections that are noticeably damp. So really trying to dry them as quickly as possible, again, to help preserve seed viability as much as possible. Or if there's more pests than normal in collections. So that's important because then we can expose them to pest strips more readily afterwards. We always dry seed first and then expose to pest strips so that we're not putting wet seeds in these closed bins in like a cold, damp space. Yeah. Yep, and then right after that, you can see that we do expose collections to pest strips for between 48 hours and up to 4 months. Pest strips stay good for a very long time. They're good from last year's use, actually, to be used this year again. That's as long as they're in a pretty airtight space, like a Ziploc bag for that amount of time. We also like to let the seed extractory know that we've exposed them to pest strips. We expose every collection to pest strip, so we can just note that in the email and the paper form that we send them that every collection has been exposed to pest strips. This is because there might be larval baby bugs in collections that we're not able to see with our eyes. So even if you're not seeing bugs, there might be still bug presence there. Yeah, and that has to be done in a climate or in a well-ventilated area that has little to no human activity. So either that State Forest Service climate-controlled garage area, not a lot of people are entering there besides ourselves and their seed nursery folk, which is a pretty rare thing, or maybe in your garage temporarily.
Did we work that out with the Forest Service, the State Forest Service for storage?
Yeah, I think we are storing it there this year.
Okay,
Mhm.
I never really saw that come through.
Yeah, I think we did.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And now on to herbarium specimens. So we're all on the out of field stuff now. Again, every collection must have 2 voucher specimens that accompany it. One of these can be used for dissection. One of these is to be mounted at a local or regional herbarium. You can collect an additional one if you're scouting in an area that's done on a different area or on a different day than when you're collecting it, because again, it might be at a different seed dispersal state. And it's good to capture both of them. If you have a flowering specimen and one that has seed that's fully developed, then you can kind of see it at different stages in those mounted specimens. For this, we like to make sure that there's little to no ground disturbance. We have permitting for creating very little ground disturbance for seed collection. So yeah, the wiggle wipe clip method is the best one for this. For that, you'll want to like wiggle the base of the plant, wipe off all the nearby dirt, and cut at the very base as low as you possibly can to try and get some of the roots included for that. You can also use a little shovel to expose some of the root systems. Just make sure that you're not creating any holes on Forest Service land while we're out there for the days. Yeah, the only holes that we should be creating are cat holes. And that's only in certain areas that allow it. So just making sure you check with, your local Forest Service partner before we go out and do collections is important. On all of these herbarium specimens, we label them with the time, the location, the species ID, its family, the collection ID we went over, and the collector. So there's a lot of information on there. This is just to make sure that we can verify which collection it's coming from and also have a higher confidence with the species we're looking at. So this is one that we collected last year that you can see on the slides there, Scrobulus aeroides. You can see that we've sort of spread the inflorescence so you can see what the panicle looks like in the field. You're also able to see the ligule on some of these leaves, where the root system is, and those basal leaves as well for it. So yeah, a good specimen, hopefully. Here's what that label looks like up close. We have label templates available if someone besides us is creating herbarium vouchers this year. So yeah, again, you can see the family, the name, the USFS collection ID right below that, the area it was collected from, a little bit of information about the habitat, along with some of those associated species. So those are pulled from the entries of dominant vegetation and any species of significance that you might have found in the area, and then who the collectors were and the date.
I'm curious if, what our criteria, because if like the first two species are invasive, right?
Mhm.
At what point would we be like, oh, we don't want to collect here because there's just too much cheatgrass around? Like, do we have
Yeah.
decision points?
Yeah, I think that if anything is teetering into cultural vegetation, so if it's a recovering fallow field, or if it is like invasive dominant area, it's good to note that. I think these might just be organized alphabetically in this label. So if you can label them in order of relative abundance on the herbarium label, that's even better. Mhm.
I wasn't sure, yeah, if we had like just your standing, yeah. I mean, if it
Yeah.
sounds like it's just your decision, your professional
Yeah.
judgment.
I think it is. Yeah, it's best judgment. You know, if you're seeing a high relative non-native cover and you aren't so sure on the idea and you also have volunteers with you, that's probably not a space that I would be collecting from. I'd try and find one that has a higher native richness, yeah, and has higher confidence in the species ID. Mhm. We have 32 species to choose from, so.
And lots of acres, so
Yes.
we have lots of native acres.
Exactly. Moving on to verification from a specialist. This is done for every collection of the season. We have a few people who can do this, including CSU herbarium staff, CNHP senior botanists such as Jessica Smith, ecologists such as Donna Sharrock from the Forest Service, and then also Colorado Native Plant Society directors such as Maggie Gaddis. We also are utilizing Dina Clark for early collections of this year so that she can do some early verifications of those first collections and scouts we do. Yeah, it's really nice. It's also really good to keep a spreadsheet of those ID checks, notes, dates, and the names of the verifier. So this is just what that looked like last year. You can see that Jessica was doing some ID checks for us, and then it also includes her confidence, I believe, for them. Yeah. And now onto resources. So here's a few different things that I'll make sure to send out also with these slides. There's a few field guides that I mentioned earlier up there, a few websites to find photos of target species from, some phenology websites up there, and then also just some that are good for general information, including that fire effects information system. Yeah, that's what we use most of our like distribution and location data from is FEIS. All right. We also have a few extra resources. These were collected from last year's presentation that was given to us. Yeah, last year's training. Yeah, the Carol Dawson from the Bureau of Land Management. She's the Seeds of Success Program Coordinator. These are some resources that she had for us. Yeah, again, all of these slides will be available to everyone attending today.
Did we get her presentation on? So hopefully the links are actually on a slide, maybe? I just took a picture because I found it in my file. Okay, that's too bad, but that's okay.
Yeah. We do have the video recording.
I say, yeah, that's what I was
And
thinking.
also, we put the Plant Families book in the bookstore, and it's free download.
Okay.
And there's actually no more paper copies, just like a box in her office. But
Well, I have.
it's
That's
right at
great
the
that we
top
have
of the
two
bookstore.
here.
Yay.
Yeah.
You need more?
I think one per crew is probably all right. Yeah, I mean, we'll take another one if you're offering though.
Well, and
I have
Donna,
10.
Carol's
wow.
office is in Golden.
Yeah.
She did say she had like 30 left
Okay.
at the time of her talk to comments. So you could catch up with her.
All right, and that's it. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for joining today. Again, I'm Allie. I'm going to be one of the crew leads for this project. I put up a few contact information for the other people who worked on this program here with us today.
My phone number if you want. Because I know we got a couple texts last year with a picture of a plant. Do you know what this is?
Right, yeah.
That was for me, Don.
And I see we have one question from Sage. Yeah.
Hey, Alec, could you give us at the Forest Service a rundown of kind of your general field schedule? I know you've reached out to some of us, but like who's going where and when should we really pay attention to our inboxes since it's field season? We're all out in the field as well. So just want to make sure that I have it on my radar.
Yes, awesome question. I can make sure to share that with the people that are here today if I haven't already. And I'll also just show you it at its current stage. We just finalized it for the season. So let me pull it up.
And Sage, we might want to do some alpine collections. So if you have any ideas for locations and timing. Or anybody, but I know.
Yeah.
The White
Yeah,
River
we can think about it. Mandy and I will be spending a lot of time at our ski areas, so maybe adjacent to that, because I know access is hard to some of our alpine areas. It involves a lot of hiking.
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Okay. So let's pull up the fields. We have two different schedules, one for each crew. Ones that are highlighted are ones that we have not yet received verification from that office for phenology yet, but we do still plan on going. For this first one, we have some verification from the South Dakota State University people that have been scouting for us. Let me see if I can't shrink this bar so you can see it a little bit better.
If Kim wants to provide feedback.
Yeah, and if
Sometime.
anybody wants to provide feedback at any time, that is fantastic. This is not set in stone. We can change things around if we feel like, yeah, things are not going to be ready for collection when we do get there.
Allie, are you screen sharing?
No.
Oh, oops,
I was
I
wondering.
am. Let me try and share again.
Theoretically, but there we go.
Okay, I've got the red box. I think you can see it now.
Awesome.
Is
Now
that
I
right?
see it. Thank you.
Cool. So I'll just scroll through this slowly. And then there's a few notes over here too. So we're going to have interns from the Colorado Natural Heritage Program with the first crew for part of this. And then we're also going to have those CLM interns that you guys saw online, Caitlin and Nick, with us for the Bighorn Day that we're there. So yeah, it's nice. We've got lots of people working on this project this year.
Oh, pause there. Question for Jessica.
Yeah.
When is the Rare Plant Symposium? I was checking the website and I didn't see the location or
should-
date yet.
Yep, it should be on the CONUP's calendar now. I'm just gonna double check so I don't tell you the wrong
I
thing.
think it is September 19th. Is that right?
September 20th.
Oh, September 20th.
Friday, September 20th in Durango.
Cool.
Okay. I know that's the end of the fiscal year for all of us Forest Service employees, and we've had a lot of budget issues this year, but I hope we can all make it there. It was really
Hey.
fun last year.
Yeah, it sure was fun having you guys there. That's good to know. Don't know if we'll have a virtual option. I have not determined that yet, but I'm looking at Maggie. Do you think it could be possible?
I've become a master.
Yeah, so Sage, hopefully we'll have a virtual option if you can't make it in person.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. I mean, much prefer to be there in person to get to talk with everyone,
No.
but this is second best to be in the virtual world.
Great. Thanks for bringing that one up.
Okay, yeah. And then that last one, depending on the EcoBot, yeah, we might be somewhere different.
So Beth Cordell was supposedly looking into places near the Bighorn for our EcoBot meeting.
There's a typo in there, F13.
So hopefully.
Big horn.
Ooh, Bighorn.
And we might have a seed collection event associated with the CONUPS meeting too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we will. Mhm.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's why San Juans are scheduled for that time period with the CONUPS meeting and the Rare Plant Symposium.
And that might be pretty high, right? Isn't that pretty late?
yeah, I think we're gonna have to go pretty high up for that. Mhm. Yeah, and you'll notice that some of the places are overlapping. Both crews will be in the same forest for the first hitch, and then also the third hitch. And finally, I think it's the second to last hitch in Nebraska.
So like Pawnee,
Mhm.
you need scouting done like on June 1st. Is that, cause that's like yellow?
We need confirmation from a Forest Service partner who's been on that region that the phonology lines up. Yeah, that's why it's highlighted. Mhm.
Well, I just will be in Fort Collins on June 1st, so
Yeah. If
I
you'd like to
could
confirm some, that'd be
check
awesome.
out there.
Mhm.
I didn't know if yellow meant permission or phonology check.
Yeah, phonology. So if you can do a phonology check, that'd be fantastic. Then you might also see some possibilities over here. So if Cimarron Comanche ends up not being the best this week of July, then we also do have Medicine Bow route as a national, yeah, as a possibility.
So my question was like on Arapahoe Roosevelt,
Mhm.
where exactly, we're a little more specific than Arapahoe Roosevelt.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you, Maggie, we're gonna be scouting from Rustic, Colorado around the Rocky Mountain National Park, so up towards Lake Granby, coming down on I-25. So like a big loop through Canyon Lakes, Sulphur, and Boulder Ranger District for there. Mhm.
And then White River will be ski country.
Probably, we haven't discussed exactly where we'll be for that, but yes, I think that we did put it on here to do some alpine collections then if possible. Mhm.
Well, if you're scouting in Gilpin or Clear Creek.
Yeah.
That's where I live. I live right next to the forest.
Yeah, that'd be
Let me
great.
know.
Well, and the Pensman collection on Pikes Peak Ranger District was like late June,
Mhm.
but that didn't, don't think anyone's going.
Yeah, I don't think we do have Pikes Peak for some of these earlier ones. We're trying to do the same forest twice if possible in the year, once earlier and once later, so that we can do some scouting and maybe early collection, and then coming back for those later season collections this year. So not every forest made it onto the schedule. I'm sorry if yours was not on the schedule this year. We'll work on it being on the schedule for next year. Yeah. All right.
Any other questions from the group?
We'll note that all the volunteer events are in the Conant's calendar. And they're like the Friday, Saturday of each hitch. So folks can go in or send people there if there are volunteer groups. Like people in the magical space of the virtual meeting. I just recently heard that you have lists of organizations you already work with on your forest, and so I'm trying to gain access to that. Just so we can reach out to those folks and they can sign up for the volunteer days. So if you have like, yeah, on my forest, I always work with this friends group or whatever, please reach out and let us know so we can make sure we're talking with them.
And I have a question for the folks online too, because I said I would follow up on possibly getting campsites for folks. In the Forest Service, do we ever have like admins, like do they have to pay to camp in all of our forests? Or do we ever say, hey, they're working on a Forest Service project and they get to stay for free? Since they are often concessionaire. Anybody know? I'll follow up on that soon.
No, I camped a lot last year and I always just paid.
What did you? Okay.
I mean, because it is the concessionaire, I don't even know who to talk to, so it just seems complicated.
Right, well, thank you all for hanging in for these 3 hours. For folks online, I think we're gonna end here, and for folks in the room, we might have a little lunch. Yeah, just wanna
Yeah.
make sure there's no more questions in the room before we move on.
Did you guys go over like a rare or specimen collecting different session, or I don't know, just best practices? Maybe that's more of a hands-on thing. Just
We had a training later this week that I think Brenda or Dina was gonna lead on how to best collect a specimen.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit different for this group because we can't take any roots. But yeah, some just general guidance, and you kind of address this as getting the phenology, like maybe even taking 2 samples, like one in flower and one in seed, but we will have a little bit more of that for CNHP staff.
Yeah, yeah, and just trying to do the best you can with having the identifiable features visible within your pressed specimen. So turning them if need be, and then pressing them so that you can see the glooms, or pulling it out so you can see the lemma on some of them if needed. Yeah.
Yeah, and for folks online, we'll be following up with some of these resources. I took notes on who wanted to be added to the ArcGIS online group, stuff like that. But certainly reach out to us if we don't follow up with something that you wanted. Yeah.
Yeah.
One
Okay.
final question for Donna, since she's in the room and this came up earlier. EcoBot for the fall, last I heard there was a lot of email chatter about dates. So what's kind of the date that you're playing around with now?
more being driven by location, since the Teton thing would have been September, and that seemed like a no-go for folks, and that's understandable. We're now looking maybe by the Bighorn, and Cordell is gonna let me know about that in October, but there were no clear winners in October. So we'll see what the venue is potentially and availability, and then see what the dates could be.
Okay, sounds good. I'm hopeful that in the new fiscal year, we'll actually be able to travel again, but we'll see.
I'm hearing no, sorry. I'm hearing it's not gonna be any better.
No, Donna, say it isn't so.
Sorry, I should just retract that. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's true, who does know, but I'm hearing not optimistic things.
Okay. Well,
Right.
thanks for working on it, regardless of.
I'm trying
what
to keep
might
it cheap,
come.
is really what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, thank you.
Alrighty, well, I'm gonna stop the recording here then.
I should have done that before I said
Thank
that
you
about
guys.
chat.